Hello, my name's Mate, and you have tuned into episode 21 of the In-Betweeners Checkup. I am joined today by a very old friend, not too old to be fair, Mike Wheeler, who's over in Australia at this time. We were actually in close contact a few years back now, over in Japan, where we first met, probably a good 15 years ago, if memory serves
Oh
me right.
wow, that sounds
So
really hard.
yes. But listen, I guess we've sort of touched base again at different times in our lives. And I think although we've had those times where we shared similar experiences, we've also had some other similar experiences which have helped lead us to where we are today. So I'm going to hand things over to Mike, and he can tell a little bit more about himself, hopefully not too much of me, and we can get into a bit of a conversation.
No worries. Good to be here, Mate. Really good to reconnect with you. The beauty of Zoom, it's fantastic. Can catch up with anybody around the world and start connecting on another level that you couldn't do before. So that's great.
Yeah. And so, listen, Mike, what are you doing with yourself these days, if I can ask?
Okay. Professionally, we have a company where we create creative workshops for kids, probably mostly in the age of 5 to 10. We create these workshops so we empower them to think outside the box, give them confidence mostly with their drawing, but we have other workshops. And then we offer these workshops out to school holiday centres all over Australia. And we visit schools and shopping centres and lots of things.
Awesome. Cool. And how did this come about?
How did this come about? So I've always drawn silly little doodles and things, and I always thought it always felt to me like a hobby. Always felt like this was never going to be something that I could make anything from. And I did some kids workshops. I fell in love with a whiteboard and drawing on a whiteboard, and then I realized that I could teach kids to draw from what I was drawing on the whiteboard, and that the ball started to roll a little bit, and then I realized that I didn't want to create the kids. I wanted to go where the kids were. Because creating the kids was a lot of work. And so then found out about school holiday centers, and then I found my business partner. He felt like it was his destiny as well to do this type of thing. And then we had an opportunity of finding all of these centers around Australia in one database, and we pressed a button on it, and we were out there. And then it just grew from there, and we just believed in ourselves and just kept going for it. And it's not a job. It's basically, I consider it like my aha moment in life. This was what I was put on the planet for,
Yeah. And how long have you been doing that for now?
So we're about to celebrate our 7th year in business.
Awesome. That's really good.
Yeah.
And so without getting too much into, I guess, the age side of things, there was obviously a journey in terms of you getting to that point. 15 years ago, we were both over in Japan teaching English, admittedly dealing with kids to some degree, perhaps not so much on the artistic side of things. But in terms of, I guess, your longer journey in coming to that place, I'm thinking it wasn't a straightforward process.
No, definitely. There's a lot of mountains, both psychologically and
physically.
Sorry again.
Physically, we climbed up a few mountains together and rode down.
Oh, definitely. I broke so many bones in when I was traveling. So it's a good thing I'm still standing. But definitely our creation has evolved and it's one of the things I always tell people is if that voice in your head is louder than the one outside, that of those naysayers, then you just got to keep going. You keep going, and at some point you will find the gold that you're digging. You keep digging, and the gold's there. And so nothing like this exists on the planet, what we have created. And it's an exciting world, and we're just totally in love with what we were doing, and always buzzed about what's next. So the journey has been about belief in yourself, continuing belief in this little shoot, and growing this little thing, and giving it abundance. And yeah, so it's definitely like another way I could say it is business plans really don't exist anymore. I think I was trying to make a business plan at the start of when I started this. People are always like, you've got to have this and you've got to have that and so on. But really it's about iterating. It's about throwing something at the wall, see if it sticks. If it does stick, then can you change it overnight to suit a hungry market? And if you don't, then you're left behind. So hence COVID, we had to turn online,
And how has that gone for you?
It's going fantastic, actually. It's been a godsend, I have to say. It's given us an opportunity to look at really the passion that we have for this business is to really go back to really teaching kids, stories that are about empowering, and revisiting those, because we had them on the back burner for so long. Just revisiting them brings you closer to really what your goal was in the start. But then life gets in the way, obviously, and you have to make money, and then you're always chasing that next, well, we're very seasonal, so you're always chasing the next school holidays, and then you don't have time to build on the background things that you need. So this COVID experience, as well as in Australia, we're fortunate that the government gives us a handout to help us out. So we haven't had to worry about that, and we can focus on, really where the gold is and try and bring that back out.
So 7 odd years ago, what were you up to?
7 odd years ago, I was running this little cartooning thing on my own, moonlighting it, actually. I used to be salesperson, advertising sales. I sold advertising on buses. I sold advertising in newspapers. I sold advertising, you name it, I sold it. Fortunately, I was always selling for somebody else and making pittance to what they were making. So that was always in the back of my head. But I started moonlighting this thing on the side, and then, the cracks started to appear, and I saw a bigger picture. So that's where it all started. And I actually told my business partner now, I told him to quit his job. I told him, ring your boss. This was on a Sunday. I said, ring your boss, who was his friend. And I said, quit your job. I believe in this so much that I'm willing to help you through financially to get through this. And that was it.
Yeah. So you were able to keep your job selling advertising while building this at the same time? Fortunately and fortunately, the company got bought out by another company, and then I only wanted to work part-time, and they didn't want to borrow that. So they promptly evicted me from their payroll. So I had no choice. Right. Okay. But I guess you could have chosen to find another role in advertising.
Absolutely. I already started to see there was a market that was ripe for the picking. So I just believed in it and went for it.
Yeah, cool. And taking those, I guess, first few steps in a new dynamic, what was that like?
Well, if we're going to talk about the impetus behind this, I've done a lot of self-development work, and one of the things with the self-development is that you get really brave about getting out onto the very loose branches. And once you've been out on those loose branches, and there's so much volatility, but the rewards are absolutely gigantic. That's when I started to see that one jump, two jumps, and I was there where I had all that fear before. It was not even there anymore. So I started taking massive jumps, and then the rewards were huge.
Yeah, I don't know what your Japanese it's like, but I can remember the kanji for risk is a combination of danger and opportunity. Yeah,
right.
So, look, I mean, to be fair, when I knew you, you weren't someone who was necessarily afraid to take risks. They didn't always work out for you, but you did live life to the fullest. So, I mean, obviously something changed. You've been still taking risks, but perhaps in a slightly different context.
Oh, absolutely. We've been, I guess, the business has evolved, and the decisions are a little bit bigger now, because we've seen fruits blossoming in lots of different areas. So it's easier to make decisions and start investing a little bit in other areas that we weren't doing before. So we've got a few people on our books now, and we're concentrating on a message that we want to really get out that is holistic, and that people know our brand and what the message is. So those risks that we thought were huge before are absolutely nothing now. Now it's a bigger game. It's a bigger game. It's a bigger playing field. There's more players in it. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you've used drawing potentially as a method for delivery, but there's an underlying message there about empowering children. Where has that come from? Absolutely.
So a lot of drawing workshops out there are very cookie cutter, very similar. So from an early start, when I started under my own name, I said that I wasn't a big fan of erasers, and I didn't want kids to use an eraser. And I just thought, you know what? How about you hold the eraser? Everybody hold the eraser, and then let's throw it behind our head because we're not using it today. Sorry about that in the background. Someone's on my computer. And so if you give say 20 10-year-olds the opportunity of throwing an eraser behind their head, and then they notice that there is a ceiling fan, they're all going to try and chuck it at the ceiling fan. Then we're left with OH&S problems and so on. So then I was like, okay, so how do we make the eraser something that is still sort of an enemy? And then we started coming up with a concept of, what about if we use the eraser as a character? And then over time, we started creating this character who wanted to destroy all the kids' creations. And then we thought, okay, so we're not going to call the pencil. We call it actually the sword of destiny. And then we started building this whole world around it. And so now we have the rubber character wants to destroy creativity, and the kids have this power through this sword of destiny, this pencil, that they can defeat him or they can combat him. And then all of our characters, one of the underlying things in the start was to let kids draw from letters of the alphabet, because I was overwhelmed by kids always saying, I can't draw. So I wanted to leave them with a new story that empowers them. So we said you can draw if you can draw a letter of the alphabet, and hence our heroes were born. So now we got 26 heroes. We've got an enemy who's the eraser, and we've got a weapon that is the pencil. So all of that combined, and then we start saying, okay, so not only are our alphabet heroes, why are they heroes? Oh, maybe they did something really good in the community and they got access into this world because they did something. We want kids to walk away from our session having a different opinion about themselves, something that they identify with one of these heroes, and then they don't go home with this limiting belief about themselves, about they're ugly or they're shy, nobody likes them, they're poor, whatever it is. Now they identify with one of these characters, and that character went on to do something even though they had that disempowering context at the start. So the whole thing flows like that, and we want them to walk away with their head held high, and just take on challenges that they wouldn't have taken on in the past.
Very good. And that's great. Like, I mean, like when you talked about the eraser, I kind of saw that as that, I'm going to call it safeguard. If you make a mistake, you know, you can just change it. And by removing that aspect, then it was kind of just allowing the mistake to be there and accepting it. And then it's not even a mistake in essence, because it's just part of. It's even more than
that, there's no mistakes in Toonworld. There's no judgment. There's no mistakes. So be free to just be. And that's our underlying theme is creativity with no mistakes.
That's awesome.
And that's what we put into every single workshop that we do, but predominantly in the drawing side of things. That's always been the thread, and the kids revere this rubber antagonist so much that they don't want to use an eraser, and they start to take on a whole personality about erasers and how bad they are. And then we combine the eraser with a stick man. And I said, well, stickmen are boring and easy. I don't want people to draw stickmen anymore. So what about if we combine the eraser with a stickman? So both two things are empowering them not to draw stickmen anymore. So we created a character called Rubbits. I've got his head right here.
Nice. Very good. Rubbits. All right, I remember that one. So what age group do you work with?
So predominantly our market here in Australia is called OSH, Outside School Hours Care, and in that market 5 to 12-year-olds. But we have seen the majority of our kids are about 7 to 10. 7 to 9 really is our key. That's where the dreaming, the unicorns, everything is so rife. Their eyes are lighting up to every single little creative thing, you know. Yeah. And then once they hit that 10 or 11, those devices take over, and
yeah, it's tough. I was actually watching The Social Dilemma the other day, and real eye-opening stuff. But I mean, you talk about 7 years now. For those people who were perhaps participants early on in the piece, do you know how they're going these days and whether they've been able to maintain some of those principles in their lives?
The participants of
the program. So if someone was, say, 7 to 9 7 years ago and they did the course and they're now 16 or 14 in their late teenage years, has it in some way impacted their lives?
That's definitely interesting. I think I've been back to some places where some of the kids recognize and said, oh yeah, I did that. But one of the things that we did, we cast our net too far. so far, so quickly. So, and we didn't really create a core group early in the piece. So now we're sort of trying to do that. We're trying to, if you're familiar with the old Mouseketeers, or trying to create a little army of little artists, you know. So that's what we're doing now. But back in the day, it would have been great if we had the same. If we worked on that basis when we started, and then we could see the progression of kids go through and so on. But yeah, that's definitely something that would be a goal in the future.
Yeah, cool. And look, I mean, this is obviously a great program for children. For adults these days who perhaps feel like they've lost that ability to be creative, and they're frightened of taking steps because of the mistakes they could make. Do you have anything you could suggest for them?
Well, when it comes to our business, because we're predominantly working with kids, parents really like the metaphors and the different things that we in place or we put into our workshops that they can see a direct result of straight away through their kids. Their kids have got more engagement, they're happier and so on, which ultimately reflects on the parents and say, well, you know, I didn't think that was possible before. So maybe their opinion changes of themselves as parents, and this was a great idea and so on. So, but ultimately I think if people put themselves out on those loose branches and go and do like self-development work, go and do a self-development course, you know, they can be absolutely game-changing and life-changing, and they can make massive decisions that they thought were absolutely not in their wildest imagination could they ever do before. So I hope that the stuff that we've created will spill out to the parents and then their friends and so on in the future.
Awesome. Well, listen, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing your story and your message, not only with people who are listening at the moment, but with all those kids that you work with on a regular basis and help to, I like to think, create some difference in the world. Because, you know, we look at a lot of the issues that adults have these days, and look, there are various ways that we work to mitigate that. But at the same time, I think, you know, if the best way to really deal with that is to focus on them when they're a child and give them everything they need at that point. So when they grow up, they've already got all those tools and all those skills and all that.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that's very evident when you do self-development workshops and you can identify with people who are out there making a difference, like yourself, Matt. As soon as you said to me, you've been down that journey or that path, that's pretty stock standard for people out there that are really like making a difference and just wanting to share and give people confidence and so on. It's because there's nothing in the way for you for that journey. That was something that was, or it just opened up for you. It's the same with me, and it's definitely self-development and confidence building, empowering, even saving money. These things are not taught at school. And if they were just taught from an early age, we wouldn't have X, Y, and Z and bullying and all this sort of thing. And so the potential is absolutely huge, and we feel like our business, our brand embodies that, and we want to empower people through that. And what was the other thing I was going to say? that mental illness, depression is absolutely huge. It can ruin people, you know. But you just got to keep sharing. You got to share with someone and share what it's like, and people you'll realize that some same people are in the same boat, and so you're not alone, and it's okay to not be okay. You know, I've experienced some pretty heavy things in that area, and life still goes on. And one thing I want to finish with is that whatever you love to do, you should do it. And if you can find a way to make a living from it, then you're winning half of life. So don't procrastinate anymore about you should do that, and one day I'll do that, and one day I'll be happy if I do that. Just do it now. The only time is now. And you can do it with 7 kids and a mortgage and everything. It's all here. You just got to get out there and jump on those loose branches.
Thank you, Mike. Well, listen, I guess this probably won't be heard by too many kids, but if any parents are listening and they want to enroll their children in this program, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So yeah, we've got a couple of school holiday sessions open to the public. We'd love to see some Kiwi kids. So if you go to Toonworld, that's like Cartoon World without a car, toonworld.com.au, and you jump on there and you'll see our online workshops, and you can register your children in. I don't know how New Zealand dollars and things go down.
Yeah. It's pretty similar these days, to be fair.
And we have free trials. Because we know that some kids, they just don't gel in this environment. But so we try and make it really easy for parents. And love to have a couple of NZ kids in there. It'd be funny as.
Yeah. Awesome, Mike. Well, listen, thank you again. And I'll let you get on with your day's activities.
Yeah, absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.